Tinyiko, what a pleasure to have you in the studio. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm so excited to have a conversation with you because you also have a role in one of my favorite organizations in Cape Town, South Africa. But at the same time, you come with a world of experience in different parts of the customer journey. And of course, you're a real life human. So I think there are other parts of your life that will be interesting to bring into the conversation. So hello.
Hi. I'm saying hi in my real life human voice.
I love that you're a real life human with a real life human voice.
Yeah, no, that is my value proposition.
This is so important. And so tell us a little bit more about you as a real life human.
Yeah, I mean, a large part of my human experience is my job, actually, which sounds a little bit lame, but I have a really cool job. One that I'm really passionate about, and one that aligns to my own values, and one that I think I'm relatively good at.
I think you are red hot amazing at your job.
You would say that because I paid you.
You did not pay me.
I'm joking.
Or can you pay me?
But thank you so much. I do genuinely pour a lot of myself into my role at the waterfront. So part of my experience, my human experience, is a marketing executive for the waterfront, the V&A Waterfront in Cape Town. And my job spans many different portfolios. There's never a day that's the same. Like I didn't, wake up this week and, who wakes up on any given weekend is invited to a podcast of this stature to have this kind of conversation. So I'm really privileged in that this role has also opened up so many opportunities and, the proximity to incredible people who do incredible things is just not something you get every day. So really, really grateful.
Yeah. And I think for me, it's even contextualizing what the V&A Waterfront symbolizes and what it means to you, perhaps. And because I think from there, we'll start unpacking a little bit more about what you do in your role and perhaps the learnings from your role that you could perhaps share with people looking at growing their businesses. So I'm giving you an outline of where we're going in this conversation,
cool.
But I'm really, really curious to understand how you describe the V&A Waterfront in your own words as somebody who presents it to the world.
Right. Okay. So I think for me to answer that question, I kind of have to take you back to how I even kind of stumbled upon the waterfront and the role. I'm a Joburg girl, Joburg born and bred. 4 years ago, had you asked me if I'd ever moved to Cape Town to just work in any organization, I would have laughed, like big belly laugh, because it was never in my 5-year plan. I don't even make 5-year plans.
Do we still make those?
I never have. I'm such a lastminute.com kind of person. But anyway, it was really a left field opportunity. They called me up and said, there's this thing at the waterfront. At the time, I was in financial services, looking after marketing for one of the bigger banks. Obviously based in Joburg, and I kind of pursued it and indulged the conversation just out of curiosity. I was flown down to the waterfront and I thought to myself, what can you possibly market? It's a mall and a Ferris wheel. But I guess the universe has jokes, because after the very first conversation and the very first walkabout, that's when I discovered that that the waterfront is a place of possibilities and opportunities, and that really moves me, that really excites me. There's one aspect of it, which is you can shop there, but there's another aspect of it, which is we build buildings for businesses, and then there's another aspect of it, and that's very much what happens in the spaces between the buildings. And that's really that's what really kind of wakes me up in the morning and gets me excited, because the things that happen in the spaces between the buildings in terms of the experiences, the skills development work, the social impact work, the passion around sustainability, and just the overall ethos of always seeking to do things in a better way and challenging ourselves to do things in a better way. And that entrepreneurial spirit is what's fundamental to the organization, and probably where there's a values alignment.
It's interesting because it takes me to, a question that every Virgin business receives that's posed by Richard from time to time, which is, how can we do this better?
Yes.
And so I think that perhaps might be the thing that you're talking about, this juice that keeps flowing through you and between the spaces and into the experiences. And so this word experience starts coming through. And so, because it's bigger than things. And so what's your definition of an experience in relation to your role as a marketer and perhaps in terms of what happens at the V&A Waterfront?
So the way I define experience is there's many ways of defining it. But the way I see it is, how do you leave people feeling? It's a very emotive thing. It's about feelings. It's about emotions. In the context of the waterfront, I guess, and most brands and businesses, we define it as customer experience. And customer experience, I see as from two perspectives. The one perspective is from inward looking out, i.e., how do your customers feel, or your consumers, or your clients, or the human beings that you engage with? How do they feel after they've left an experience with you, after they've transacted with you, after they've handed over their hard-earned money to you? Do they feel like you've added value to their lives? Do they feel like you value them? That's one aspect of customer experience. The other side of the coin is knowing and try in an attempt to answer that question of how you want to leave people feeling, is how do you make that happen? And how you make that happen is through your team, your workforce, your staff, which then opens up a much bigger conversation around employee experience.
Right.
Because employees are human beings too. They also are on a career journey. They want to ideally work for an organization that aligns to their values, where they see themselves integrated into the business strategy, where they actually see that their input has meaning, has value. And the one side of the coin, the employee experience, enables the other side of the coin, which is the customer experience. Right. You can't have the one without the other. Else it's not really
then it's a
impactful
thing that's apart from the business.
Yeah.
And I think there's something crucial there, because again, as entrepreneurs, we're so focused on building and designing our products and services, and we feel this urgency to get them out there so that people can buy them. But I think we sometimes forget that part of the decision that customers or users or clients are making in terms of buying the thing that we're putting out there is actually based on how they feel after they've transacted with us or interacted with us.
100%. I think when you're having a conversation around customer experience, we also have to have a discussion around customer service. Those two terms are used interchangeably. The difference between service and experience is that service looks at one point in the customer's journey. It's that one interaction that probably is at the point of sale, like that particular moment of truth. Customer experience is made up of microservice moments throughout the customer journey. It also takes into account the fact that the way in which a consumer or a customer gauges and rates their experience with a brand often starts long before a decision is made, maybe even long before a need arises, and it continues long after a transaction happens, long after the sale, long after they procure your service and your business. And it requires an appreciation for that full end-to-end journey, and where there are points of friction, where there are burning platforms, where there's a real need, but also unlocks an opportunity to think about your business in a different way, because when you think about it experientially, it gives you permission to be more human-centric, and also maybe to tap into a little bit about yourself as a human being.
This human experience is important.
Yeah, I think there is one aspect of running a business, which is, what can I sell you? What can I bring to the table in terms of a product and service? But more than that is, how can I make a difference in your life? And that's the realm of the experience economy.
I'm going to quickly tell a story around my mother, who, when I was little, which is
just a couple of years ago.
Yeah, a blink ago. Mm-hmm. And she had a little tiny car, and I would sit in the back seat of the car, and she'd see this particular luxury sedan drive past, and she'd say, one day I want to drive that car. One day that's the car I'm going to drive. And of course, this car's tagline is sheer driving pleasure. Mm-hmm. And then one day the car came into her life, and I'm talking decades later.
Sure.
And it was this idea where she already experienced how she wanted to feel and how this car made her feel decades before. Then when she went to go collect the car from the showroom, there was a whole tra-la-la about, it's the drinks, it's the flowers, it's the giant ribbon, it's the photograph. And for this lady, this was the most exciting thing to ever happen to her. And then the part where it's still exciting to her, and this is where she's almost an ambassador for this car, is every time she takes it in for service, she gets offered a cappuccino.
Yes.
And the newspaper.
Yes.
And it is this idea where her pleasure around driving this car comes down to even when she's taking the car in for maintenance, where they offer the newspaper and the cappuccino with an extra cube of sugar, by the way. Mm-hmm. And so it's this, she's basically had a 3-decade-long relationship with a car that she only got 5 years ago. So,
yes.
It's that's what it evokes in me when you bring the story around. The customer experience starts long before you've even made a decision about interacting with that product.
Right. And it transcends the functional aspects of the product, because this particular vehicle will take her from A to B. It is probably quite reliable, but there's so much more embedded in just the symbolism behind that moment for her, because that was the car of the dream. That was the dream.
Yeah.
Because I know what car you're referring to. It symbolizes so much more, and embedded in that is your own history and whatever generation mess you are trying to. We could go down a whole rabbit hole behind this.
So exciting.
It would really be exciting, but like I totally get it. And what's beautiful about that story is clearly this particular brand understood the deeper human need for whatever the need was for your mom, and created moments of magic and moments of joy and of surprise, when you talk about surprise and delight, that, it has made her probably their biggest ambassador and loyal to a fault.
Yeah. We'll stop there because one day I will have a podcast about my mother. And so at some point you mentioned a little bit about, that we think about we come across customer service at a particular moment.
Yes.
In our experience, our journey with a business. And then you mentioned that there are almost these micro service points, I think you said.
Yeah, like micro service moments of truth.
Yes, moments, I like that, these moments of truth. Are you able to maybe just describe a few of them? Because sometimes as we're building our products, our services in our businesses, we're sitting there scratching our heads going, well, I know what customer service is. So I know either how to make sure that I can delight my customers at point of sale, or I know how to maybe come back with a hero's journey in terms of maybe I didn't delight my customer and I need to get them back. But what else happens? What else makes up this customer experience as I start to think about it in my business?
So developing a customer experience strategy requires one to map out the customer journey. What's really important about that is acknowledging that you may have a perception of what your customer journey is, but for your customers or your clients or your visitors in our case, or your consumers, it might be totally different. So it's an interesting exercise to look at what does the customer journey look like from your vantage point, and then actually ask your customers what it looks like to them.
Because they're human.
Because they're human beings, absolutely, and they have opinions on things. But it's not just mapping out the moments in time through the journey of them getting to purchasing your product. It's in those moments, which are the moments of truth. Which are the moments that matter? Then you design your experience around moments that matter, because it's those moments that matter that ultimately determine, what will be a memorable experience or not. So we often get bogged down into literally mapping out every single point in the journey, when actually what you're trying to do is highlight and surface the moments that matter to your customer. And you simply have to ask them. And then it opens up a really amazing territory to start designing these and innovating experience moments around those moments that matter. It also gives you a nice game plan on where to focus your attention, where to prioritize your resources, and where to invest your energy.
And so as I'm starting to think about developing the strategy around what is going to happen between me and the customer, my business, where do I place purpose in this conversation? Because we're talking as a Branson Center about purpose-led entrepreneurship, about entrepreneurs who are here to create a positive impact on society, on the economy, and the planet. Where do I incorporate this in my customer experience?
I just want to say, actually, that I just absolutely love the Branson Center's purpose. And I just think it's so powerful that part of your purpose is igniting and galvanizing other businesses and other brands to define their purpose, because it's the sum of the parts, right? It's the collective that's going to make a difference. I just think that is just,
thank you.
I just had to say that. I think that's just, really powerful. So to answer your question, it all starts from purpose. I know I'm preaching to the choir. I'm sure everyone who's listening to this podcast has already drunk the purpose Kool-Aid. So I'm just repeating what and just reiterating what we all know. It all stems from purpose. I would say that purpose in the context of customer experiences, you can't have one without the other. You can't have a purpose without customer experience, because customer experience is literally what happens on the ground. Customer experience is purpose made real. Without customer experience and those little micro moments of interaction and service and engagement and experience, then your purpose is just like a strategy on a page.
Absolutely.
Right? It's just words on a whatever, on a wall.
It comes out of team building time.
It comes out of team building time. It's a nice thought. It's window dressing. Equally, you can't have customer experience without having articulated a purpose that's fully embedded within your organizational culture, where your employees have fully bought into it and know what impact their role, no matter how big or no matter how small, not that there's ever a small role, because it's, again, the sum of the parts, but they fully understand how they can make purpose real through their role. So in that case, purpose becomes the guiding light. It's the thing that allows you to ask less about. It asks you to. It forces you to not ask the question, "What am I selling?" and more like, how can I make your life better? So the two work in tandem, but ultimately everyone kind of needs to be galvanized around that purpose. I think also purpose sparks creativity, and possibly even stretches you to think about your experience strategy, not just as customer experience, but as the business of experience, which then opens up a really amazing opportunity to redesign your organization to become the business of experience. Yes, you have your product. Absolutely, you have your service. But when you think about your organization as a experience-driven organization, and center your structure and people's roles around that, it transcends a pandemic. It transcends any uncertainty. It transcends the shelf life of your product and your service.
This is so exciting, because it all comes down to this idea of purpose. Obviously is our guiding light. It comes down to the idea that customer experience is Purpose Made Real, which I feel like I'm now going to repeat to everyone who dares to listen to me or gives me half a chance for the next 2 weeks.
Fabulous. I expect royalties.
Okay, we shall discuss, but now we are during the people.
Okay.
Yes. And I think the last question I have whilst we wrap up this conversation is, what is your purpose?
I think in this season of my life, my purpose is, I think it's to make people feel seen. You know, that doesn't matter who you are and like where you are right now. Like, you matter. Like, you feel seen. I believe I have massive capacity for that. You know, I see you. And I think that my purpose in this season is also enabled through my job. So in this season, it shows up in how I work with my colleagues, how I lead my team, how I think about the job, is to make people feel seen, like they belong. I'm not sure what it will look like in 5 years' time or 10 years' time.
We don't do 5-year plans
We
anymore.
really don't, because that's too much pressure. But the fundamental core of I see you will largely remain unchanged. It may show up differently.
Well, we see you, and thank you for seeing us and for spending time with us. And so, a little bit of quick fire.
Sure.
You ready for that? No panics?
Okay, screw it. Let's do it.
Oh, love it. Oh my gosh, a true marketer. Customer experience is?
Fundamental. Non-negotiable.
Amazing. Purpose-led experiences leave us feeling?
Joy.
A business that doesn't think about customer experience is a business that will?
Become redundant.
Oh, that was really solid, straight. You didn't even think about that one. Thank you so much for your time, T. It's been such a pleasure chatting. I have so many other conversations that I want to have with you on this podcast. So with witnesses, we're going to have you back in the studio.
I look forward to it. It is so cozy in here that I just want to stay here for the rest of the day. But thank you so much for the warm welcome and your generosity.
Thank you.